Well, to those of you who are listening right now, thank you for listening, because it's probably more than the number of people who are willing to do this recording right now. Damn it, I just wanted to get the quota in for January. We're in the last couple days. But it is Sunday afternoon, January the 26th, 2025. And honestly, we are a couple days away from the Lunar New Year. That's what takes a few of us away, and other commitments. So the way it ends up distilling down to is just myself and James. So we're just gonna sit around the space heater and chat it up for just a little bit to get in quota, and talk about a few things that caught our attention this week. Essentially, I guess this is just a in short bullet points episode for the space heater, James. I think that's
in a way, yes.
A better explanation, and maybe just a few other things that did sort of catch our attention. This might be actually maybe this is a good way to start catching up individually with everybody. I was thinking maybe catch up with Amy, Mo, and Kevin individually later in the week. Maybe that may make a good series of episodes. We'll see how it goes. And because they've all seen a few interesting things and have some different takes from the last little bit. And maybe I just want to let them flesh those out. But when it comes down to it, also when it comes down to the history of our podcast, me and you, James, we're the constants, right?
I guess that's one way to put it.
Well, we're coming across, as I said, we're coming across 19 years in a little over a month since we started or laid down the microphones and the board for the first time. But I guess now's not a good time for a reflection. Well, there'll be plenty of time for that in a little over a month. But it's just it's a Sunday out there. It's a really nice day. It's here in Toronto. I will tell you now, it was one of those weeks that had been cold for much of the week. It's still cold, but a lot more comfy than it had been since earlier in the week.
It's closer to zero, Mike. That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, not minus 10 Celsius. What's the conversion in Fahrenheit?
But yes, we were very cold, not as cold as other places. I talked to some people where it was minus 40, or someone who was in Winnipeg that was minus, I forget which day it was, when we were obviously cold too, the polar vortex going all down in it. It hit the south too in that. But I forget, they were in Winnipeg. It was like minus 46. They were going into the airport, and it took them 15 minutes to get off the plane because the door to get out of the plane was basically frozen shut. It took 15 minutes to warm up a door to get out of the plane because it was minus 46, and that's without wind chill.
And people love to rag on Toronto for complaining about these type of things. It's the infrastructure, folk. For me, the way I look at it, infrastructure and culture too. I mean, a lot of the people here who have immigrated into Toronto came from warm weather climates, and most of the time, a lot of the time, this is just plain different from what they've done. And as I said, the infrastructure too. It's just, I'm not. Never mind. Maybe I'm just not in the mood to make too many excuses.
You could always go to Vancouver there, Mike, as they like to say. It's like, oh, there's not that much snow and all this other stuff over here. It's just raining and all that other stuff. But then when they get a bit of snow, it's like all hell breaks loose sometimes.
Well, sometimes it's just, as I said, it's how often does it happen? How much is it in the culture? How much is it in the infrastructure to respond? Mm-hmm. And how densely populated it is too, right? As I said, maybe I just don't want to. I'm a little tired of making too many excuses in that sense. Okay, so a couple things did catch our attention over the last couple of weeks. It's been 2 weeks since we chatted for another space heater. Don't know when we're going to do another regular episode. maybe we should just get rid of the branding. Anyway, but a couple things did catch our attention from the last time. When was the last time we recorded? On the 12th?
Yeah, it was about 2 weeks ago and stuff like that. And I know you'd been talking to me about the handhelds and how everyone's showing interest again in the hybrid handhelds. And then, of course, after our last recording, we had kind of made mention because of the CES show in Las Vegas and stuff like that about many leaks on the floor and many other things online and stuff like that. And then Nintendo decided, you know what? Maybe it's finally time we put a sizzle reel together and say that there is another video game system after the original Switch and stuff like that, which is still going strong and stuff like that. And that was like on the, they basically dropped it on the Thursday, January 16th and stuff like that.
Okay, so you're out of the five of us, you're probably the biggest Switch player, or at least certainly the most visible. Kevin, I think has one too. I don't.
I'm probably the most visible Nintendo fan. I could say that too.
Of the bunch of us, right?
Because between the consoles and stuff like that, yeah, it's between Nintendo and Sony, but primarily on Nintendo. And as most people know, if you want to play the first-party Nintendo games, which I think you can go in, you can be any age, you can just have some fun, you know what I mean? Just get away from it all and stuff like that. And sometimes you want some of that, and that's on their console. It's a box of fun, as they've always wanted to say, right? Is just have some fun. But it's been interesting because I know a lot of people were talking, so they had a lot of leaks on what the Switch 2 is going to look like and all this other stuff, and it really ramped up at CES with Genki was one of the accessory makers there and said, oh, why don't you guys come and see our mold of what the Switch 2 could look like and see what type of accessory. So a lot of accessory makers were there kind of showing what could possibly be. And I think Nintendo had sent some people over there, some lawyers possibly, to talk to them.
Isn't that possibly how they do it? That's usually their MO, is it not?
But then as it got along early, like after we had just recorded, some other things came out, and I know there was and I think he was from NeoGAF originally, and then Reset Era was, and you have Fami Boards is another one. They have things going across, like people from China saying, hey, this is what's in our factories and all that stuff. And it's not like the finished model, but it's like an idea of what they're building and stuff like that. And then whether you believe it or not is another thing. And then information from other places and stuff like that saying, hey, this is what third parties may be working on and what they think may be coming down the pike. And I know one of them, Nate the Hate, he's on YouTube and has his own podcast, and he'll have some information supposedly and stuff like that. Whether you believe it or not is up to you. But he had said the Monday before basically the unveiling and stuff, oh yeah, it's going to happen this Thursday and stuff like that. And that's what he was hearing. And then someone else, I forget who it was online, said something similar. And so people start, you know what it is, people start to latch on to any information. And I'm like, well, we'll see what happens. If it happens, it happens. And then people on the Wednesday night were worried because Nintendo had announced that they were going to have an announcement on the Thursday. So they're like, oh, it's all lies and all this stuff. And it's just like, well, you know what? Let's just see what happens. And then at 8 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday, Nintendo just dropped the sizzle reel for the Nintendo Switch 2. And like some of that, I think, is why they didn't make any announcements and just dropped it, is they wanted to have control. As Krista Yang and Kid Ellis, they had worked on it at Nintendo's San Francisco offices, and they had been a part of Nintendo Minute, and they've now like become content creators themselves, basically on YouTube.
They have their, and they have their own podcast. I do subscribe to their podcast too.
Yeah, so they had said, and I think I was of the same mind, but they kind of confirmed what was in my mind, is that they've had leaks before, but Nintendo probably was extra pissed off that these leaks happened and stuff like that, that this is how it occurred, in that they may be spending energy they don't have to try and find out why it leaked out and stuff like that, because they are a conservative Kyoto company and this is in their DNA, but they need to just say, you know what, it's happened, let's move on, let's go ahead and stuff like that. And the only thing of control they had left is just to drop that trailer whenever. So I think the trailer was always going to drop in January. It's just like, okay, we're just going to drop this down and give people the roadmap and stuff like that. But I know that it's interesting that they have to really get in the mindset, these the new guard of Nintendo, right, and the leadership and stuff like that is they have to understand that leaks are probably the cost of doing business, and for them it is like they should have known this probably would happen, because we know as well afterwards that they're saying they've probably started manufacture of these a while ago, because they said they're going to have 20 million Switch 2s by the end of fiscal next year. So that would be end of March 2026. And that's going to be more than what they produced in the first fiscal year for the normal Switch. And some of that is they don't want the scalpers to basically start trying to get these systems and then sell them off to people at higher prices, and then people to have a bad taste in their mouth. So they probably wanted to build that supply, wanted people to say, hey, if you want to switch to, you'll be able to get one. But they probably had to have understand, I'm sure some people told them that likely the longer this goes on, and because it's going to be manufactured, all that, leaks will get out. It's never going to be perfect. And we've seen that with Apple as well, that happens and stuff. And they got to think in that mentality. And we've seen that even with games from Take-Two, and we've seen it with Activision Blizzard before they were with Microsoft. And even I think Activision Blizzard and Take-Two, they had like plans of, well, what happens if our games leak out and stuff like that? It was just like, let's just drop it and go and just run with the marketing and stuff like that. Instead of, I mean, look back and try to terrorize everyone in the company and say, okay, who did you talk to that talked to someone else to figure out how these things got out? Because it's just a zero-sum game.
Right. And they can do that anyway later.
But they had talked about that with Kid and Krista and stuff like that, that they expended energy sometimes saying, okay, who did you talk to? And then they want to make it insular so it's only so few people. So, but at some point you have to talk to someone to then get the marketing going, getting everything going, right?
It's an interesting way. This is just how it is in these times, right? In our internet times, in these digital times, things are so connected, and it just doesn't take too much these days, right? You really don't have to put too much effort into that, and it doesn't take too much to spark a little bit of smoke, and then you get your fire. And you knew, like the way I'm looking at it too, ramp up production, have twice as many within the first fiscal as they did with the original Switch to try and prevent scalping. But the thing is, that probably gives you a time frame to start up production a little bit further back or a little bit earlier to make sure you have the stock. And surely in that type of time frame, something starts to get out too.
And it's the idea of, we know it's going to be in 2025. We know you're going to get through that first hump, the first group of customers, right? But then it's that second group and the holiday season. That's where you want some of that 20 million too. You know what I mean? So that people can have something to put under their Christmas tree or whatever tree they are celebrating for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I get it with wanting to do, to take the rug out from scalpers in that sense too, or at least not give them a chance, if nothing else, right? Like rugging, like the rug out from the scalpers is they already have the items, but then another glut of stock gets into the marketplace. That's taking the rug out from under them, and I guess because they think that they already have something, and then or they're in the process of something.
What was it?
Because that's what happened with the PS5.
Well, there was an old picture. Now, whether it's true or not, who knows? but it was like from the Wii U launch, and this lady that possibly was a scalper with all these Wii U's in the back of her like minivan or something like that, I guess, to scalp them or do whatever. And boy, was that a terrible investment and stuff like that.
Well, okay, but it now leads to another thought. Can this be a Wii U situation, like a lack of success? Let's start looking at the possibilities and the possible successes of the Wii 2, because maybe some of it can already has a few people confused. Isn't this just like the most casual of possible consumers?
I think a
are
lot
already thinking that could
so
think it's not. It's the same thing.
well, I would say this: a lot of the things, and I know some commentators on YouTube have said some similar things I have, and I think it's just horse sh what some of these people are writing in their articles and even on videos and stuff like that, talking about, oh, Nintendo's got to be crazy, Nintendo's got to do something different. Bullshit, literal BS. I like. Here's the thing, Mike. Like with this, they've changed it up. Obviously, every system they've done has been named different. They had an incredible success with the Wii. They had over 100 million units sold and stuff like that. Changed how they were going. It wasn't a graphical arms race and stuff like that. And then they took their pivot on the Wii U, and it was a sucker punch to them. It was not a good generation when they went to the Wii U because, as you said, people didn't understand, is this an accessory for the Wii and all this stuff? And so they had built up a large cash cow. They could have had another failure. They could have had another console failure and stuff like that. But as we know with the Wii U, they had to basically pivot very soon and stuff like that to their next thing. We know they dabbled a bit in mobile, and then we had the NX, which became the Switch and stuff like that. But remember, before that, they had the portable section of Nintendo and the console section. So they'd always have a console, but they'd also have a portable console. So for NES, SNES, and then N64, we still had the Game Boy out there.
The
For
Game Boy
the
Color,
GameCube and the Wii and the Wii U, we still had the DS and the 3DS and stuff like that. So they still had some, they still had some balance of power, some probability of success if one didn't do as well. And then the other thing is their teams were split between the portable and the console. But then when the Switch came, basically, as you said, and many have said, they had learned some lessons and said, hey, the Wii U wasn't a complete failure. The customer liked that idea that they could have that tablet and play the games like away from the TV and all that stuff. But you were kind of tethered to the console. So they untethered it from, like, you could play it anywhere, but you could put it into a nice dock and still play it on the big screen. And that was the big thing. And it was a huge success for the Switch and stuff like that. But the big thing is, remember, now there's no more portable and console. It's just one thing. It's your hybrid division. We're making games for just one machine. We have to get it right. And they got it right with the Switch, as we saw. And any losses they had on the Wii U are basically gone because the Switch has sold gangbusters, even more than the Wii. And they've made a lot of money on software and consoles and that. But the other thing, going back to the original Switch reveal, if we want to look at compared to this, because people said they were underwhelmed by the Switch 2 sizzle reel, which I can understand because it was just them showing the system. You saw a bit of the next Mario Kart and stuff like that, an idea of what the new Joy-Cons are going to look like, that's a bigger screen and all that. But yes, the original sizzle reel they did for the Switch, they were introducing a new concept. So that's why it was like a commercial, that they shot it in Vancouver with live actors, that you saw a guy just playing Zelda Breath of the Wild on a console, but then he's like, oh, I got to go and walk the dog. So I'm going to go take my console out of the dock and then take him to the park for a walk, but then continue playing on my Switch so that people could see, oh, I don't have to worry about being tethered to my TV or to like a box. I'm taking it anywhere I want and then putting it in to a dock if I want to get it on the big screen and stuff like that. They were in the airport, they were on rooftops, whatever, you know what I mean? Like they were showing people what it could do. They didn't have to do it this time and stuff like that. And they were saying to people, okay, this is our next system. We know that, and we've seen it in some of their recent first party games in that the last 2 years where they've been pushing the system, like it's aging architecture and stuff like that. And we can see it in like the frames per second, how some of the games are performing even on the Nintendo side. They needed something more powerful, which obviously this is going to be and stuff like that. We know that obviously there's going to be different, instead of clicking into place, that we're using magnets to go in there. They kind of showed that in the trailer. We saw different things that hopefully the how it does for tabletop mode, that's a little different and stuff like that. We know that there's going to be some sort of, like we saw the infrared, there could be something mouse-like. It just depends on how basically developers, third party and first party use it. We know that hopefully the sticks are going to be better, that there will not be stick drift. I know some people think the Hall effect sticks are going to be there. Hopefully they will be, but we'll see how that goes. The screen, I know people have been talking about. I don't think OLED's there day one. I think we're back to LCD, but it's still going to be a nice screen. But we saw in the trailer, it's going to be a bigger screen in that. Not as big as, say, I think you were looking at some of the other ones. Like it's probably not going to be as beefy when you're holding in your hand as
a Legion
the Steam
Go.
Deck or the Legion. Yeah, the
Legion
Lenovo Legion. Now, Lenovo Legion is huge. That's probably the biggest screen. Like some people that have held it said, this is ridiculous holding it in your hands. Like it's going to make the Switch 2 look portable, even though the Switch 2 it's portable, but not fit in your pocket portable. You know what I mean? And that's what we said with the Switch and stuff like that.
Yeah, how big is too big? I guess that seems to be.
And I think
Lenovo
and the Lenovo one is one people have been making that question of, have we gotten way too big and stuff? So at some point, yeah, you can only go a certain size. Maybe the next system they can go a bit bigger, but they have to watch and see how they do it and stuff like that.
No, maybe I'm sure they'll pay attention to what happens with the Legion 2. Was it the Legion Go 2? Is that what we call it? And then the Legion Go 2S.
Yeah, no, it was the Legion Go 2, and then don't forget Asus has their own handheld and stuff like that. Just like
the ROG.
Yep, the ROG, the ROG Ally and stuff like that, and then.
Of course, and then Steam Deck.
Steam has the Steam Deck and stuff like that.
I guess just as a quick pivot there, what does with Steam doing a partnership with Lenovo for a Steam branded and Steam
OS and stuff like that, which they're starting to bring that.
Does that mean what does that mean for Steam's own hardware business? What does that mean for the actual Steam Deck brand?
I don't think it's too bad to have that, because it's nice to have that OS available to other providers and stuff. And it's just like Microsoft has been doing for generations. So I don't think it's too much. As for them, it's just an extension and stuff like that for Steam and stuff like that, because they know a lot of those people, they'll either go to them one way or the other. So they're going to get those customers one way or another.
Maybe coming back to another angle on basic video game economy. Lose on the hardware, but gain it all in the software.
But the other thing you remember is a lot of those ones, the computer type hybrid machines, as we've seen, yes, sometimes they have docks like the Steam Deck and stuff like that, that you can throw it onto the big screen and stuff like that too. But remember, their price points for those are basically like PS5 Pro territory, or PS5 in between the PS5 and PS5 Pro territory for cost to the consumer and stuff like that. It's not like Nintendo with the Switch. Like the Switch 2, there's been a lot of rumblings. What's the price going to be? What price is too much and stuff like that. I think a lot of people are thinking they're going to be around before tax $400, like $399.99 US dollars. We'll see what happens. I don't think they can go above 500. I can say that. for US dollars.
American.
Yeah, American. But for those other machines, they're way above that. And remember, yes, they're more technically proficient, but the other thing is it's PC architecture. So for Steam, remember, you have to double check, is that game Steam verified? If it is, out of the box, away you go. You can play it, no problem. But if it's not Steam verified and some of it is either we don't know or it may work in certain circumstances and stuff like that, you have to fiddle to get that game to work the way you want and stuff like that. Whereas remember, when we're talking consoles like PS5 and Xbox or the Switch 2 or Switch in this case, when I get a Switch or when I'm going to get a Switch 2, I know out of the box, if I put a game in there that's meant for that console, it's going to play.
Basically,
it's going to work. And now, is it going to be like perfect 60 frames per second? And like, is it going to have all the bells and whistles? Sometimes, maybe not. I think it'll probably be okay for most of them. But we've seen in later generation, when it taxes the system, yeah, it's not going to be maybe at that 60 frames per second or going to have like, because they're taxing that system. And we've seen that with later Switch games and that, which hopefully once we get to the Switch 2, we'll have better performance and stuff like that. Then it's a matter of how long will this last, because the Switch has lasted close to 8 years now. So maybe they get a little more out of the Switch 2 too, but I think the Switch 2 probably will be in the same realm for lifespan and stuff like that. But it's one of those things where when you get that console and stuff, in the out of the box, you're going to be able to play those games that you want on there. And it kind of rings to one of the things in there that they mentioned backwards compatibility, right? And they showed the Switch, like Mario Wonder Switch card, and said, put it in your Switch, put it in your Switch 2. But then there was a nice statement under that, a legalese statement that looks like it was written by their legal department that said some games may not work on there, and it got everyone in a tizzy and stuff like that, because I'm sure they're like, oh, my new Pokemon games for A and Z that are coming out for the Switch at the end of the year won't play on my new Switch 2 console, which you never know. Maybe given Game Freak and what happened with Violet and Scarlet, maybe that could happen. But I very much
real likelihood.
I very much doubt it. What some people have said, and I think is more truth to reality, is there is the weird Nintendo still out there. There are some interesting products they throw out there that just no one else would do. Labo, this generation, which was with the cardboard and stuff, and it went around the console and went around the Joy-Cons because it was specific to the Switch 1 Joy-Cons, all that may not work with the Switch 2, which would make sense. The other one was Ring Fit, which also needed the Joy-Con, so maybe it can't fit the bigger Joy-Cons of the Switch 2 and things like that.
So so the issue could be more a physical lock than software-ish or coding lock, right?
Yeah, because they do weird things, and that's the thing some people were complaining about. They're like, oh, there's got to be something like with the system and all that, and it was even having the possible mouse controls, whether that's in there or not, with what we saw from the Joy-Cons. It's like they feel something should have been, like they feel like there isn't enough or something like that. And I say that's nuts, because as I said, they're now merged everything with their portable and console division. They found success with the Switch. Why stop that success? They can still be weird with other products and stuff like that. We've seen that with Labo, and we've seen that with some other things as well. And so I'm sure they can use that on the software side to still make the weird things people don't expect or things like that. It's just so weird. And then the other thing is it comes back to the naming. You had made a mention. This is, and as many people know, this is the first console where they put a 2 after. We've had new, but now we have finally a 2, and that makes more sense for the consumer. I've been in game stores and other places, and yes, even if you put a number after it, and we've seen it with PlayStation, people are still asking the clerks and all this other stuff, well, can I play this PlayStation 2 game on my PlayStation 5 or whatever? It's easier to have that conversation and say, unfortunately not. This is a brand new console. This console plays only the PlayStation 5 discs and the PlayStation 4 discs. Anything else, unfortunately, it does not, because it's for their respective systems. So it's easier to have that conversation. And it's a lot easier for most consumers when they say, oh, Nintendo Switch 2, this is the next console. You know what I mean?
Well, I guess
It's a lot more clear than Wii U and stuff like that.
Yeah, and maybe a lot more clear than PlayStation Pro 5.
But yeah, no, go ahead.
Finish your thought, because I was about to go into the PlayStation side.
But it'll be interesting. Like, they did finish off to as well that there are going to be some Nintendo Switch 2 experiences, and so it's basically like they're lining this up just like they lined up the Switch 1, and they also mentioned there's going to be a Nintendo Switch 2 Direct on April 2nd, which is kind of funny, because if they want to go in, why not have it on April 1st? Because people are still going to be confused between what's an April Fool's joke and what's a real leaked announcement for this Direct. But
well, you did talk about the experience, the Nintendo Switch 2 experience. It's been announced, various cities in North America, and I guess in Asia too, or is it Europe?
Nope. So they've announced it just like they did before for the Switch. So it's going to be in Europe. So it's going to be in England. I know in London. I think in North America, Toronto's there is the only Canadian thing. We got LA, Dallas, and I think it was New York City, which were ones they had done before. I believe in Australia, it's going to be in Sydney, I believe, in Australia.
Okay, so
it's going to be in Taipei, and it's going to be in Japan as well, in Tokyo.
Okay, yeah, so I'll go through the dates as they're known apparently to this point.
It's going to be in Korea too.
Yep, April 4 to 6, New York and Paris. April 11 to 13th, LA and London. April 25th to the 27th, Dallas, Toronto, Milan, and Berlin. April 26th and 27th in Makuhari in Tokyo. May 9th to the 11th, Madrid and Amsterdam. May 10th and 11th, Melbourne, Australia. May 31st and June 1st, Seoul. And then to be announced, Hong Kong and Taipei.
But yeah, okay, I was off. I was thinking Sydney, but yeah, I guess Melbourne makes sense too. So that's.
And they also said, the tickets. And I know you said you registered, right? And the last day to register for that, for the Toronto stop, would be as we're talking right now, today, until midnight today. Which means by the time people listen to this episode, if you didn't sign up, no shot.
Well, basically, they give you because I had went for the Toronto one, but
originally
they basically said, okay, you're in a draw, and we'll let you know after the fact if you have a ticket to get in. You had to have a Nintendo account and stuff like that, just like we did last time, except this time they're like when we did it for the Switch 1, the Nintendo account was in its infancy, so they allowed you to say, hey, do you want to bring one other person with you? This one, it's like you have to have a Nintendo account. If you want to bring more people with you, they have to be on your Nintendo account, family account. So if you have a family account, you could bring those people on that. But if you just have a solo account like me, you're just bringing yourself and stuff like that. But it's interesting that they had different time slots. I put in for a time slot. So you had to basically pick that time slot, and then you're basically coin in the air. Can they pick your name out of a hat for that time slot? So it depends how many people basically went for your time slot. So I went for early Saturday morning time slot.
That is so
I'm
you.
Hoping,
that
is
I'm
hoping
so
that
you,
not many.
I know how your Saturdays are. So.
Well, I'm just hoping that no one in their right mind wants to get up early on the Saturday morning to basically go to a 2-hour
and take a GO train.
Well, we can still take a GO train to this one. So this one, the Toronto experience is interesting. When we did Switch 1, it was in January, late January, because we had the unveiling early January. But I think it was like, yeah, late January. I was on a Saturday. I think there may have been a drawing too, but I got in. And for that one, it was at Metro Convention Center, just a small part of the North Building. And then you would go in, you could experience Breath of the Wild for the first time. You could experience Splatoon 2. You could experience Mario Kart 8 Deluxe kind of in an airplane like setting because they wanted you to say, hey, you could do this in tabletop mode. They had Fast FX, Bomberman. They had the Street Fighter 2 game that they were doing at launch as well. So they had some of that. So it was interesting to go around and try all the different things. So it'll probably be similar to that. Interesting enough, they will not be at the Metro Convention Center. They're going to be at the Enercare Center at Exhibition Place,
So
which
they're
is
on the
still
CME grounds.
like I think probably cheaper than Metro Convention Center, but still near transit in that because people can either take the streetcar to get there or they can take the GO train. The GO train still stops right there too.
It'll be across across the hall from Coca-Cola Coliseum. So
yeah, and right near the TFC, the BMO Field.
Where BMO Field, where TFC and the Argos play. It's and well, not that anybody could really visit the Raptors practice facility too. So,
but no, I've been to the Enercare Center for places, and so it should be a good place to host it and stuff like that. And hopefully, those who are able to register can get in and stuff like that, and we'll just see how it goes. But it'll probably be a similar thing. They're going to show off the new Mario Kart. They're going to show off some of the games that are coming in that launch period and stuff like that, and those third-party games, because we've heard a lot of rumblings about the third-party games, and there's a lot of games that people are like, is this really going to happen? Because some of them are ones that have been on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. Mm-hmm. And I know some of them are like Elden Ring and all these other things. And I think what can close that gap, even though the Switch 2 isn't going to be as powerful as a PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series, is that they are going to have that NVIDIA upscaling technology. And yes, we didn't see any of that in the trailer and stuff like that. And I'm not sure if we're going to see that in that next Direct, but that upscaling DLSS, we've seen it on PC, but if they can get it working well on the Switch 2, it'll be a big boon for them. And it's some of that idea of we're going to make sure we can get to 4K, or maybe even in portable mode. Maybe we don't want to do 1080p off the bat and then use that to get to 1080p. And where that helps is we're not going to, those large file sizes you see on PS5 and then on the Xbox Series, maybe they're not going to be as large and stuff like that because they're going to be using the upscaling technology to meet those goals and stuff like that, to get to the resolution they want and stuff like that. So maybe that helps because they still have the.
It's wanting to keep to the Nintendo quirk. They're not always aiming to be the most technologically advanced. It's just, but they still want to. I think their goal is just making the experience enjoyable. That's just
and they optimize those file sizes and stuff like that, because it's not like you're going to have a terabyte available on this system day one. You're going to need an SD card, and that's the other thing that we've heard the rumblings that we can use our regular SD cards, but if you want to get the full experience, we're probably going to have to upgrade to the SD Express cards that are now, they aren't out there as much now, but I think they're going to come into vogue probably once the Switch 2 comes out, because they're going to take advantage of that technology, the SD Express, which means faster loading times and all that stuff.
Basically, it's a speed thing,
and that's to help them compete against the PS5 and the Series X, to make it say, hey, I'm not sitting here waiting on a loading screen or all that stuff. There is going to be some of that to help out for the SD Express, and probably some other things in the technology itself, in the Switch 2 itself.
The key thing is competitive, not necessarily dominant, but just competitive, right?
But yeah, the DLSS, it probably, depending on how Nintendo uses it, the third parties use it, if they're talking certain games that we've heard and they're able to use that technology well, then it could definitely open the door in the future. And it basically gives them that little bit of competitive edge to say, okay, we can do this. We can still say they would still be relevant regardless and stuff. And people are still going to buy the system regardless because, as we said, that's where you're going to get the Nintendo games. But it'll give you that option maybe for other ones that you want to play portably. And yes, you could play them on the Steam Deck and all these other things. But if you get them and we know we're going to play them at a decent quality on the Switch too, at least you'll know then it's like I put in the card and away we go. I'm not going to be fiddling in settings for the first 10 minutes or so.
Yeah. Okay, I get it. I mean, that's sort of the PlayStation experience. On that note, just a brief word for the PlayStation, because I've for the last number of months I've wanted to say something about about any portable version of the PlayStation.
And it's funny because we talk about the other portable one, and it kind of was more towards the Wii U situation when you think about it, because remember, you needed the PlayStation 5 just so you could stream to that portable PlayStation. But we'll see what happens, whatever happens with these portable ones Microsoft and Sony have said. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it sounded like the Portal. I always said, and I'm not totally sure if it's on the record for in past episodes here. I always said that the Portal, if at worst, was a chance for Sony to try if there is still interest in portable gaming under the PlayStation brand, and obviously it worked out. And then they just started to play with it a little bit, and that led to that beta that culminated in the beta a couple months ago. I guess it's a few months now, where if you had a PlayStation PlayStation Plus Premium account, you can use it to stream the PS5 library directly onto your Portal. No PS5 required, just an internet. And I think it just solidified that there was interest. And now word came out a few months ago that yes, they are, like, this was in November, I believe, where they are kind of taking a little bit more of a harder look at the idea, and that I forgot who they were teaming up with in terms of a processor, if it was AMD or I know that Qualcomm, it sounds like Qualcomm wants to maybe even make a move on trying to get the processor. But I know that one thing they want to focus on it sounds like is backward compatibility. And then remember, when Mo and I talked a few months back, we kind of played the speculation on the two different chipsets, one that called for a physical drive and one that didn't in terms of their next generation. But we've speculated that, somebody out there speculated maybe the one that didn't call for a physical drive. Could this be where we're going in terms of a portable? Because maybe the digital may not be a thing, but portable, but using that in a portable sense and being able to pull out your libraries, your downloaded libraries to play natively in a system isn't far-fetched, as long as you have the proper chipset. And that chipset could more often than not play PS4s, but if you're real lucky, go into the PS5 side with certain optimizations. But I guess where I am now, in reflection of all of this, is are we reaching a rather dangerous thought? Dangerous might be overstating it, but I'm not sure people would like the idea that could the future of console gaming be strictly on streaming? Because say this whole thing with the portal with streaming PS Plus content really does end up working. Are we could this be the first real success in a traditional gaming sense, whether it's console or PC branding, where there's no, it's strict streaming of the game? Well, and could that be people like the idea of still having hardware that can still drive the games they want to play. And obviously that's not the case with the portal. It's just a throw. It's just a projector, so to speak, right? But if this is too successful, if this really goes, I mean, then could it scuttle the plans for a portable? Or maybe that's just really, really being too paranoid.
Realistically, Mike, it's not going to be PlayStation. It's going to be Microsoft you want to look at, because
Oh,
remember,
okay.
basically we have the Game Pass, and it's a matter of how they're going to turn the Game Pass and basically get it onto other platforms, which they're trying to do and stuff like that. And we're starting to see that, of course, and we've seen them obviously put their games themselves onto PlayStation 5, onto Nintendo and stuff like that. They've said that after, like, they had a developer direct last week, that
I was
there are
actually,
some more, more games down the
big.
pipeline, more things that are probably going to come to other consoles that are not Microsoft and stuff like that. And we're talking Ninja Gaiden 4, we're talking Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, and then some of the other ones. But it'll be interesting to see how Microsoft goes forward, where basically I think they've decided, yeah, we're just not in this console race. We're not into making boxes. We're into having these experiences and getting them onto other people's boxes and streaming them maybe wherever you have a screen, right?
So you think it's not so much Sony that's approaching that, it's Microsoft. And you know what, now that you put it in those terms, and I should have realized that too.
And remember,
We
this
have been
is
talking about that
started
for a
even
little bit.
further back, because you could look at it starting off with Xbox Live and stuff like that, and them getting, it's like, how do we connect the internet and those experiences to gaming and connect gamers together through the internet, and how this process has kind of been playing out for the last 20 years, so to speak.
Yeah, and I guess in my case, maybe the mistake I made in my in that little monologue I just gave was just the idea of the hardware being branded at the same as the company, Sony, Microsoft. So it doesn't sound like, because it sounds like Sony might focus on playing it on a piece of hardware with a PlayStation name on it, whereas in the case of Microsoft, it just sounds like, okay, the service. It's just the service. We don't care the hardware. It's just that you use our service.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
And remember, as we said, with Sony, that hardware isn't just about being a video game machine. It's playing our movies. It can play our music. It can do multifaceted things, which, unlike Nintendo, which we talked about, Nintendo kind of said, you know what? This is for playing video games. This is a video game machine for you. If you want to enjoy some great video games and have some fun content, then you can come to us and stuff like that. And the other thing with that too, with Nintendo, I hope they get right this time as well, is they took a step back with the Nintendo Switch on how they offered online, how they offered voice chat and stuff like that, because most people went to Discord if they wanted to get voice chat with friends on online games like Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 3. Like, they hopefully go back and at least get up to industry norms that PlayStation and Xbox are doing for voice chat, because I know the issue for them with the first Switch, and some people have made the same criticisms, is they had to pivot fast to that new console. They teamed up with NVIDIA. They were taking the Tegra chip basically off the shelf. This time, they've probably had the chance to work with NVIDIA even more to make that custom chip the best it can be and stuff like that, and make the console the best it can be, so that they can probably have a proper, like, online infrastructure, proper voice chat and stuff like that, unlike the last time. And hopefully that does happen too, and that they learn from their mistakes, where hopefully we will not have Joy-Con drift and stuff like that. But we'll see how it goes. But as to finish off the point on, since we've talked quite a bit about that, and I know
and
many
we
people
should
have
actually get back
talked
to the anime
even
stuff,
more,
right?
is that I know a lot of people, as we had said at the beginning, right, Mike, that they said, oh, this is just the Switch Pro and stuff like that. And I'm like, you know what? That isn't a bad thing. They have finally found the secret sauce. Let's not, like, mess around with the secret sauce. Let's make a more powerful version of that. Let's make the tweaks and stuff like that that needs to be made, which they seem to be making, and then put some great games on, and the people will come. I think That way they know they're going to start to get the people in. They're going to start talking about the Switch 2 and they'll get more people just like the Switch. So let's not fix what isn't broken. And as one commentator I was listening to online said, well, if we're talking about the wheel and we put the wheels on the cars and they're round and stuff like that, why are we going to turn them into squares and stuff like that? Because we think maybe we should try something different in that. If it isn't broken, don't fix it sometimes.
Or
To
if
make
it
it a
isn't
lot
broken, or don't fix it, or a cliche that both you and I are familiar with because it's Bob McCown's most popular, Bob McCown's more popular cliches. And obviously, you know, the inspiration he is for this show. Don't fuck with happy. Right?
I wish we could tell that to some of those. Like, I seriously wonder, some of those people that they wrote, were they just trying to get clicks or people to get views on their channel by saying silly things and stuff like that? You know what I mean? It's just like, at the end of the day, I think we'll see what happens. I know some people are like, oh, it's a long road. It's not that far to April 2nd. We'll see what happens then. And then for the launch, I wouldn't be surprised based on what we saw with the first one, where they basically had big reveal in January. They had these Switch experiences up through the end of February, and then they launched that console in the beginning of March. I would say that it isn't far-fetched to think that Switch 2 launches in June.
Probably not.
Because
who knows?
then you get the summer, you go through that, you get through that initial allotment, and then they still, as we said, they're going to have 20 million consoles. You're going to have that next,
then more in the chamber for the Christmas season.
Yep, for the Christmas season. Right? And you're probably going to have that big Christmas game, probably for the Christmas. It's probably going to be a Mario or something, but they've been holding up because they want the consoles. They've also been probably making sure they have the content and the third parties behind them so that it's going to be a strong year one.
Mm-hmm. And who knows, I might be able to play Yakuza Kiwami. That Yakuza is it Yakuza 0 that's there, or is it Kiwami that's on Switch right now? Might play better.
It's Kiwami. I think it's the first.
I think it would. And it would probably play it a little better with the up specs. On that note, and maybe for the people who do listen and have started to watch, I am going to start. I did want to try to finally test out the video game side of the Roundtables stream and see what it's like to hook it up to this old 2020-ish MacBook and try and play just stream a little bit of my trying to catch up on my Yakuza 0 play. I was looking at it. I turned it on and checked the games, and it let me know that I hadn't touched Yakuza 0 in more than a year. It was the end of 2023 when I last played it in any form. And then I picked it up, played it, realized I hadn't maxed out all of my... I had maxed out all but two of my hostesses in the cabaret club. So maybe as a test run, I'll try and stream myself trying to max out the last of the hostesses in cabaret. Maybe you'd want to watch. Maybe, James. I guess on that note, let's get into the other parts. We don't have that much time. We've used up almost an hour to talk about the Switch, on an anime issue.
You should have seen how much some of the video game ones they used up even more, and that was just on the 2-minute sizzle reel, right?
So maybe we did okay in that sense, right? They spent an hour talking. They spent 30 times as much talking about 2 minutes, right? Okay, so let's go there. Let's pivot just a little bit, or segue. What do you want to talk about before we finish up? Do we want to talk about Discotheque and Diamond, Discotheque or Diamond, or briefly a bit about both? Discotheque had their Discotheque had a presentation.
I think we can leave Diamond. We can probably leave, but
okay, let's summarize it this way for Diamond. Diamond we can leave, much like many of the publishers have. Got it. Is that a good summary?
That's a bonus summary, but yeah, Diamond Comics distributors, they basically they do distribute to
They were our
bookstores, yes,
childhood, dude.
but
They were our child.
mostly they distributed to independent comic stores across North America and Europe and stuff like that. And as you know, Comic Den is near and dear to both me
Mhm.
and Mike. And if we
I
wanted to get stuff from Comic Den, as a comic store and stuff like that, they always had every month the big thing of Diamond, the catalog that we could look through and see, okay, is there any comics or manga or stuff we wanted to order from them? And they had the stranglehold. If you wanted to get stuff in that market, you basically went to Diamond, and that was for the big boys like
give
Marvel,
me a sec. I just got to
DC,
get this.
and some of the others. So for Diamond during the pandemic and stuff like that, they had actually shut down for a bit. So all those people like Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, and stuff like that, they're like, okay, these other distributors are up. So they ended up going to other people other than Diamond because Diamond was shut down, and all this exclusive contracts they had basically after they had come back online decide, you know what, we'll stick with you, but we're going to stick with these other distributors as well. So basically, it was the beginning of the end, and then it just slowly turned till basically now they're filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the States.
Yeah, and a lot of those publishers are creditors.
Yep, no, all of them are creditors, and we get to find out how much in US dollars some of them are owed. Like we think about a local company like Udon Entertainment, they're owed $2,000, 694, and that's in US dollars. And Viz Media is owed close to $500,000. It's like $421. Sorry, $421,205, and then you can go through a list, and it's just like, yeah, they did put some money in Diamond to get them out to the direct market and out to the comic book stores. But as we know, it was dwindling there because many of them are going online. Many of them
Many of
are
them
going
are
to bookstores.
essentially, yeah, they found other avenues, sometimes their own.
Mm-hmm.
I will, okay, and I think that's enough to say about Diamond. But I will say this, just to finish that thought off. One thing I loved about Comic Den's getting their Diamond shipments, their boxes. Those things were sturdy. And and when I moved, I made it a point to get my fair number of boxes. As a matter of fact, see.
Yep, no, those are the boxes, all right, and they've never changed. I don't think they changed it in over 20 years, right, Mike? I think those were the same ones from 20 years ago that they would have sent recently.
They probably are the same ones from 20 years ago. But the thing is, like, and this is a thing sometimes, like, as a box, the boxes were sturdy. They're very reusable. You can just collapse them down and then tape them back up when you need them. That's a thing for a lot of people. That's a thing, I guess, at my age.
And you think about, and they had the handles and that, and the other thing is, you think about what they were putting in, because a lot of those comics, the books and that, like when you put a lot in there, it probably weighs a lot, right?
It does, and that's probably why they were so good, because of what the material they had to have. They had to be good. So I have a lot of these boxes sitting like folded up down in the archive, and just in case. And I don't regret that. And I it's one of those things that I'm loath to actually give away, much less get rid of. So yeah, but that's my reflective pose and thought on Diamond. And maybe, as I said, I want to understand it just a little bit, because I know I hadn't kept up with it.
But I'm sure, like, it's not the end of the comic book stores in the market. Yeah, it's smaller than what it used to be, but basically Diamond Stranglehold isn't what it used to be, and other distributors have picked up the slack and stuff like that. So,
well, yeah, it's the market is burgeoned. It is different, and that's just the way it went.
And then some of the comic book stores, as we know, have went different models as well, because it's not like me and you, Mike, where you'd go into the store and stuff like that, maybe each weekend or whenever. Some people went once a month. Some of them now have started to branch out, as we said, online to say to their consumers, okay, maybe you're not able to come in once a month or whatever, but maybe we can ship some of the stuff to you and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And some of them are using some of the shipping material. Some of the distributors are sending them, so to speak. So you never know. Those diamond boxes could be still coming to some people.
Clutch them, hold on to them for dear life. Okay, on the topic of distribution and to a company that doesn't have any good one in Canada, Discotheque. They have their obligatory streams. You always watch those, James. What did stick out? And I guess this is one of the last things we'll talk about today. What stuck
we
out?
We got probably one more in us, but yeah, for this one,
what
for this one,
it was
on the 20th. So last Monday, the 20th at the nighttime, and it. I know you said, yeah, it's harder to get it in if you want to get it from a Canadian source. Basically, at the moment, for Discotheque, yes, it's Crunchyroll store, Amazon. Now as well, they've said Justin Zavakis for the Media OCD store, they have the February pre-orders on there. They're going to get some of the newer pre-orders as they go along, and then they're going to try and get a few of the back catalog titles onto the Media OCD store as well, so that people have another option. But it is what it is, and I'm not sure how that works, because I know for Media OCD, for Anime Ego, for Justin, somehow he's found a way with the distributor he has. Obviously, they do it through all the regular suspects, Amazon, Crunchyroll store. They have it on his Media OCD store, but somehow that distributor has got things for Anime Ego onto Amazon.ca as well. So I'm not sure how that works, but Anime Ego things, you can see them on Amazon.ca. It is marked up based on exchange and stuff like that. So that's one thing you do have to understand if we ever get Discotheque stuff up here. But the only ones you could possibly get is if it's a third-party seller. But in regards to the stream, or I guess we could say two streams, because they got copyright striked basically in the middle of the first stream.
There's a certain irony about that, because in this case, they show off something that they, I guess, had the rights to.
Correct. And so it could have been something from before what they showed, but they had just finished the cartoon King Arthur and the Knights of Justice. They finished that trailer and stuff like that, talked a bit, and then boom, copyright strike. They had to restart the stream, and they've done this before. And so literally it was crazy how quickly people migrated from the first stream to the second stream and stuff like that, because they had close to 3,000 people on that first stream, and they probably got most of those people back. So they've definitely have a mind share on quite a few people and stuff like that. And there was a lot to announce at that stream, or two streams, whatever you want to call it. There was basically 24 shows that they announced. And it was interesting because they are branching out. We've seen it with Tokatsu, Toku Time. We see it with live action. We've seen it, as we said, with the cartoons and that Western cartoons. And then there's the bread and butter, the anime. And sometimes it's harder to see things because now they're on bi-monthly schedule. So the next releases come in February. And then their next solicitation will be for ones in April and stuff like that. And so they do have a big back catalog, and they're trying to get through it, as they said, as best they can. And the bi-monthly schedule, I guess, has helped them, because in this stream, none of those 24 were anime. 5 of those announcements were Western cartoons. 10 of them were live action, and that includes tokusatsu releases and stuff like that. In regards to what was interesting and stuff like that, I guess if we'll look at the live action cartoon one very quickly. But in the Western cartoon one, they had Highlander, the animation series. We talked about King Arthur. They had Stone Protectors, But the two big ones from that'll be interesting to see how people like are two Catcom properties. Basically, Darkstalkers, the
Doctors.
anime series, and Street Fighter, the animated series.
Yikes! Yeah, that's an
And
old
Street
manga.
Fighter, the anime series, has made a few memes for itself, as we know. The one with Bison basically saying, yes, yes, yes. But that one will be interesting to see how those do. It's nice to bring a piece of people's childhood over. In the live action, they did have some.
Wasn't that their one of their marketing mottos or something? Bringing your childhood back.
Well, no, I think that might have been what they were talking about, the Ruined Childhood brand for Anime Ego that Justin was doing for Media OCD. But there's probably a crossover there. But live action was interesting too. We had some anime stuff from there. So they had the Lupin the Third live action from 2014. They had Nana. They had Tomorrow's Joe. They had Hana Yori Dango Final,
Basically, the
which was the
finale of
Japanese one.
Yeah, the finale of the live action, which featured Matsumoto Jun and I forgot who played the girl and who was the girl in that. And then there's always and there's always a constant rumor about those two seeing each other in real life, and then you throw in a bunch of other stuff concerning that. But that was the two stars of that live action were certainly gossip fodder in Japan for a long time, and in some ways they still kind of are. Sorry, it's a fascinating story. I mean, when I hit the end record button, we'll talk about a little bit.
Yeah, that I think that happened after the series. It was the Japanese series because I know Hana Yori Dango had a few series in different parts of East Asia, so to speak, and stuff like that. So, but they had some more common writer, I believe, and then there was one called Ultimate Human Machine Special Investigation Robo Jan Person. So those two were their Tenkatsu one, and there was another one there too. So it's nice that some of those people get some different ones out there in the market. And then they had some different Pinky Violence series and stuff like that from the Terrifying Girls series. And then they had some other interesting ones like Shark Skin Man and Peach Hip Girl and stuff like that. So those were interesting because they had to do a little nip and tuck, as I guess Mike Toole would say, to cut out some things that YouTube might have found a bit too offensive on the violence and gratuity side. But it was interesting to see those ones and see, I guess, who's going to buy those as well. But to get back to what we are, anime, they had some interesting things there as well. So they had Angel Heart, and Angel Heart is in relation to City Hunter.
Yeah,
that one has not been released anywhere before, so that'll be interesting to see.
Was that previously announced? I had the feeling that was before.
No, it was maybe it was. They did a live action of Angel Heart and stuff like that because they had a female protagonist, but someone might have released the live action and stuff like that because I think there was a live action based on Angel Heart, but the
maybe
anime
we were talking about but maybe we were just talking about it in light of the live action City Hunter movie that came out earlier, like last year, right?
But yeah, the Angel Heart one, it's finally coming over. That one is actually about 20 years old, I want to say. So it's up there for some people. And then they had some more Nanoha that they announced, which was Vivid Strike, which I'm sure made some people happy. They got a Netflix series, which I believe is not on Netflix anymore, which is Cyborg 009 versus Devilman, which works for them because they have done 009 and they have done Devilman before.
Separately, yeah.
And then the other thing is they're upgrading a few of their DVDs to Blu-ray, Flame of Rekka, and that one originally was with Viz, and then an old Geneon title, Deers, is coming to Blu-ray now. They're upgrading that, and supposedly that got the Astro Res treatment. Deer supposedly had a big reaction from the chat because they show the opening and that one's like, "I'm your slave" is basically one of the things they say during that. So some people were like, okay, but it's not as etchy as you think. And so, and it's a Peach Pit series. And when it originally came from Genion that like 20 years ago and stuff like that, Peach Pit had Deers and they had Rose and Maiden. And so it's like it didn't feel that bad. And then the other thing I remember about Deers is for some people, that volume one probably is the original. If it's the original one, then I think it was just the dub that was in mono. Because remember, they always used to have mono issues with some things from Genion, from Media Blasters, and stuff like that. And sometimes they would do exchanges. Deers was one of the few times there was an exchange for the defective disc, so you could get stereo sound on the dub. I think it was. So, but it was a fun 13 episode series for Deers. And I think back then in my mind when I was looking at, basically in some other people's minds, is we kind of called it the Chobits knockoff. If you kind of look at how it was designed by Peach Pit and stuff like that, because it has that Chobits vibes for the Deers and stuff like that, how they're designed. But
yeah, well, looking at some of the visuals, yes. I mean, I never saw it myself, but
yeah. So the other one, there were three other things that were interesting. One that I'm intrigued actually to get is, so we had talked about how they had done work, Discotech brought it over, and then also on the European British side, Anime Limited or All the Anime, they had brought it on their side. And it was big on the UK side because Manga Entertainment had redone the music and everything. Remember Cyber City Oedo? So they had done another series for Manga Entertainment, and I'd forgot about that. And that was the movie of Space Adventure Cobra. And I forgot that manga had done something similar with that. And this one, they did redo all the music, but they had got it's the yellow version is what they want to call it. And so yellow, for people who don't remember, it was tech synth band from the 80s. And their biggest one for the single everyone remembers is Oh Yeah. And that was from Ferris Bueller and from Secret to My Success with Michael J. Fox. That was featured prominently in those two movies. So they got their hand on this movie and did a soundtrack basically for the whole movie for Manga Entertainment UK. And so it's, as they said, kind of a fan disc for the fans. And I'd be intrigued to check it out just for the UK dub and for that soundtrack, just to see how it is, right? So
yeah.
And then
two more, and then the last two.
The last two were, and Kevin was intrigued by this one. I was intrigued too. Is Higurashi When They Cry is now on distributor number 4, as they say, because started with Genion. Genion went defunct, so Funimation had to finish releasing the rest of it. And then Sentai, after the license ran out, Sentai last decade picked up the license rescue for Higurashi When They Cry and released season 1 on Blu-ray, season 2 on Blu-ray, which had never come out, and then the OVA after that. Now, Discotech says we only know they have season 1. Hopefully they go and pick up season 2 and the OVA back again if this does well, but that'll be an interesting one. Hopefully some more people enjoy Higurashi When They Cry, because it was a fun series.
The only thing I will say, I'm really asking, since you said distributor number 4, is that a record?
I see, it feels like it could be, but given some of the ones from the 80s and the 90s, you know what I mean? Like some of the Japanimation titles and that, I feel like there are some that probably might have been to 4 to 5 before this, you know what I mean? But for something from the aughts, from 2 decades ago, I'd say probably yes.
Probably a record from that time frame.
From that time period.
2000. Sure. Okay.
But
I get it.
they said they're going to spruce up the subtitles and all that stuff. We know that the only extras they have are clean opening and ending and stuff like that. But I think even with the spruced up subtitles, it probably will be a nice one to pick up again, stuff like that. Because I think when Sentai did their Blu-ray, they had used the subtitles that Genion had originally made. And I think they were kind of in a rush to get them done, you know what I mean? Because they were closing and stuff like that. So it's not that they're terrible or bad or that. It's just they probably needed some more editing and stuff like that. So they gave it the once over. That'll be nice. And then if they do release season 2 in the OVA, that'll be nice. Those ones had to be translated from scratch by Sentai because they had never been done before. So hopefully anyone who enjoyed the new Higurashi series that Crunchyroll released a few years ago, maybe they'll check out the original.
Always good to do so.
And then the last one, which was their final announcement. So we had known that they had one more mature title that they were going to probably announce at some point because they had talked about when they announced Kite. And a lot of people thought, oh, maybe that means they're going to get Mezzoforte and stuff like that. Well, it wasn't Mezzoforte. It was another title that Media Blasters had and that Central Park Media had, and that Justin Savakis had worked on as well. Legend of the Overfiend.
Rotsukadoji.
Yep. And they supposedly gave it Astro Res treatment and went through everything.
I think
this is probably going to be the best it's ever going to look, and it's the OVA and the movie version on one disc. And poor David was the one from Media OCD that had to go through a big chunk of this and stuff like that. So poor Justin sent him through the ringer, and he had sent someone else. I forget who he said he got to do, but remember Violence Jackie? He sent that out to someone else that he thought could handle it, but no, I guess he couldn't find someone to handle Legend of the Overfiend.
Yeah, so if force somebody else to do it and then pay for their treatment afterwards. I think he hinted it took like 36 hours to go through the Astro Res treatment or something. I think I read.
No, there was a lot to go through for that one, but they have a lot with that, and so it'll be interesting to see when that comes up. It's probably, like they said, going to be only available at Amazon.com, just like Kite, because as we know, Crunchyroll does not want any adult material on their site. And supposedly for Media OCD, I think, what was it? Their storefront is done through Wix or whatever it is, but whatever it's done through, they have a thing about adult content being on their site as well, like sold through their platform. Let's just put it that way. So if you want Legend of the Overfiend, it's probably going to be through Amazon.com, but that I don't think hurt Kite at all.
No, nothing else to add there. Hey, it's considered a benchmark in the adult world, in the adult animated world. So
yeah, some people consider it a work of art, and we know on the UK side as well that there's been a lot of things written about it by Helen McCarthy and many others, Jonathan Clements and others, right? So
I connected with I connected with Helen this week on LinkedIn too. Remind me to say hi. Anyway, so that's I guess that's it.
But yeah, no, that was it from Discotheque. So, but I know some people were saying different things, but I think it, even with just being 9 animes announced, that it's great that there are some other things they're willing to try. Like, yeah, there's still tons of anime out there they could possibly license. It depends on if they can find the right people to make those licenses happen. It's whether they can get the materials so that they can decide, is it going to be on SD Blu-ray or regular Blu-ray? But it's good that they're trying other things to bring money in and stuff like that, where we have like Western cartoons, because someone out there probably is like, oh, I remember that from when I was a kid and I'd like to try that out. Or even the live action stuff, because some of them I'll look at and it's like, oh, that's interesting to try and give it a whirl and stuff like that, whether it's from an anime property or it's something completely new like Takeshi Miki or something like that, right?
You respect it. I mean, we are trying to dig around to find a little bit more content and material from past times, and maybe sometimes they only heard about them, or maybe there's a certain name recognition that goes with it. I mean, the live action Lupin, I'm sure, goes for something. Hanayori Dangle goes for something. Going through and looking at some of these other names, Street Fighter, sure. The Street Fighter animated series, Darkstalkers, sure, why not? I watched the odd episode of the Highlander animated series back then because I was a fan of the movies. and maybe that memory lingers for somebody. And there's that phrase. Sometimes it's like fuck the quality and how great these titles might have actually been, because sometimes it is true. Sometimes something is so bad it is good, right? So as I say, as you talk about, said all that, I once again want to relay that story a few years back when I was at the Noma Noichi, and somebody came up to me and said, "You probably don't have this, but I want to ask anyway. Do you have the dub of Card Captors?" And I did. And I thought I couldn't, there was no way I could get rid of it. But here I was with somebody who was looking for that. And I had it in the first 4 episodes. He just said, it was just a good memory from childhood. I don't care what it was, what it really was, but it was such a good memory and it got me into this. And maybe that's all you needed. And maybe that's all you, and chances are somebody like this guy wasn't the only one. And that's part of the thinking and surely that's part of the thinking here too. More than a few people would have dug around for these and would have loved to see these again. And so a chance will come. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Do you want to talk about Crunchyroll logins for a second before we go?
Yeah, we can talk about that and
make it an even 90 minutes.
Some thoughts in the new season. We can make this. We can get to 2 hours.
I don't know about 2 hours. I'll go with the 90, but I'll go with the 90 minutes. But
I guess the quick one, at least on the Crunchyroll thing, is I know this Thursday, so I think that was on what was it, January 23rd. There were some people online that they said there was an X account and it was showing emails with login passwords and stuff like that. And probably it wasn't that Crunchyroll got hacked or like something like that. It was probably a phishing thing with people's passwords and things like that. Regardless, whatever you believe. So Crunchyroll did send out a statement, I guess, this weekend. And their statement was, we are aware that login credentials for several streaming services, including Crunchyroll, were posted on social media and have resolved the issue. We have secured the affected accounts, investigated the situation, and determined that there is no evidence that Crunchyroll systems have been compromised. Crunchyroll encourages subscribers to diversify and change passwords regularly and keep them confidential. For any questions regarding account security, fans can visit our customer service help page, and then the link to the help page. But regardless of what you feel and stuff like that, and some people on both sides were kind of saying, oh, why are you guys talking about it when like it could be phishing instead of whatever? If you felt insecure with your password, and I change my passwords from time to time, I hadn't changed my Crunchyroll password in a while, so I decided to change mine just to be on the safe side and stuff like that. And that's all you got to know is like, okay, maybe some things are happening. Maybe they didn't get into Crunchyroll, but it's probably good just to change your password anyway. You know what I mean? For Crunchyroll at the very least, which I did. But this is the bigger thing. And that's what I told you, Mike, is we went into our accounts. We went to the change password section. We put in the new password. Put in your old password. Then you put in the new password. Then you repeat putting in your new password. And I would say most people online were saying instead of being able to change their password, they got an error code at the top and they tried at least twice, got an error code. So we couldn't change our password. So what people had to do was they had to log out, go to forget my password so that they can then go to the email that has the link to then change their password from that forget my password link, right?
Yep.
And so that is so stupid. Like literally that ticks me off more than finding out that some people's accounts were compromised. Like you should, like all this money you're getting in and all this other stuff, your site should at least work on some of the most important key factors and stuff like that. I should be able to change my password when I'm logged in. I shouldn't have to go out and forget my password and all this stuff unless it's some AS backward system where somehow we're secure because the people that got into our accounts can't even change our passwords because they don't have access to our actual email for that account. But I don't give them that much credit. So I would say like it was just ridiculous. And then it brings us back to what I told you, Mike, is remember we talked about they're going to try manga again, all this stuff, and I think they're going to use manga to basically upsell people like myself in the account that's at the very bottom and stuff like that. You're not going to be able to upsell us if we had that type of experience where we couldn't even change our password. We had to forget our password because it's going to be like, why am I going to pay more money when that I don't know where that money is going to go? Is it going to go to actually making sure all of your site properly functions?
Well, you had me thinking I should try and change my password, even though I don't have an active account right now on Crunchyroll, but I hope to by the before too long.
And
And
no, I was able to change the password. It's just the process, and I think some other people felt the same way. The process to go about it left a bad taste in people's mouth. So it's like
tell me a Crunchyroll experience in the last month or so that's left people feeling warm and fuzzy. Right? 25, the drive for 25 and 25. Well, that's one way to trip out of the starting blocks in 2025, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
but it was funny. I told you new season and stuff like that, and some funny little things I saw as we were going along. So to make it quick, on a few of them,
I'll talk a watch too. I do have a watch. I did want to mention one thing I did see. So go ahead. What's on your watch?
Well, one I'll go firstly quickly to High Dive because I noticed January 15th they lost licenses to 3 series, and that was to Spy Classroom, to Giant Beasts of Ours, and then also to Kobo Won't Let Me Be Invisible Now. Now, Kobo Won't Let Me Be Invisible Now and Spy Classroom have only been with them for 2 years, and Sentai did release a physical edition of those ones. But it's crazy that in 2 years they decide to either not renew the license or they just let it go. So that's interesting for High Dive, and doesn't sound great, is what it put it in my mind, since they lost those licenses on January 15th, and that's for Kobo Won't Let Us Be Invisible, Won't Let Me Be Invisible Now, Spy Classroom, and then the Giant Beast of Ours. Giant Beast of Ours is actually interesting too, because I think Sentai was somewhat involved in that too. So how do you lose your license to that when you were a part of the committee? But that's for another day.
Off, as Warner Brothers likes to do.
But the last one from Sentai, and then I'll get on to the one thing from this season, Yurtse Yatsura. So they solicited the second set of Yurtse Yatsura for April this week. And so that is episodes 24 to 46 of the new series, the reboot and stuff like that. So they had dubbed Sentai, and it's on High Dive, it's on the Blu-ray. They had done an English dub for the first Blu-ray set, or the first set of episodes 1 to 23. I had thought, oh, they're going to dub the next part, right? 24 to 46. Hadn't seen it on High Dive, so I'm like, okay, maybe they'll wait for when they do the physical Blu-ray. Look at the physical Blu-ray. It's only English subtitle only with Japanese dub. There's no English dub. So they basically cut their losses and decided not to do an English dub for Yurtse Yatsura second set, episode 24 to 46, which is interesting because it's like, okay, Takahashi and stuff like that, we think of all the great works and stuff like that. And I know Yurtse Yatsura, for some people, it's for the older fans, right? But I was hoping maybe they could bring in some newer fans, but I guess it just didn't do well enough, which is unfortunate. I'm still going to buy that second set, even though it's just sub only and stuff like that. But it would have been nice to continue on the dub and have some other fans check it out, and maybe think about checking out Discotheque and the older Yurtse Yatsura. So
doesn't bode well for a possible remake of Maison Koku.
Okay. Unless it goes on Netflix, because then it'll definitely get a dub on Netflix and stuff like that. Because remember, Netflix has Ranma.
And who knows, they may actually treat their actors better. I don't know.
But
Okay.
so the last thing, so this season there was one series I was actually looking forward to. Now the English title is I Have a Crush at Work, and it's basically a rom-com, work romance comedy and stuff like that. And it's an interesting one too because it started off obviously as a manga. The manga is available in English from Kodansha USA digitally. So the digital
Okay, manga.
volumes.
No.
So yep, K manga as well on there too on their app. So it basically is in English, digital only, the first 7 volumes for I Have a Crush at Work. It basically is completed at 15 volumes. And the mangaka, actually, not to forget it, is Enomoto Akamaru. That is the mangaka that created this. And it's a fun series. And we know it's complete. And the other thing for it too is it has a similar vibe, I want to say, to Sweat and Soap and to another one that Crunchyroll actually had on there dubbed, which was My Tiny Senpai. So it's surprising that this one, I Have a Crush at Work, the anime premieres this season, but no one picks it up in North America, which is kind of crazy.
I thought
And
the anime, not
yep,
even on
yep,
Crunchyroll.
not even on Crunchyroll, High
Oh, I thought
Dive,
it says
or
here.
anywhere.
It says it's.
Nope,
It's
nope,
just news
nope,
on the.
nope. It
Okay.
was just news saying that it was going to be there, but
Yeah.
it is not on anything. And I was thinking funny about Kodansha as well because this one for the manga was in Morning Magazine, similar to Sweat and Soap. So I thought, okay, someone's going to get, especially since they have it in English digitally and stuff, but no one picked it up. If you want to watch this, you'd have to get a VPN and watch it on Bilibili because Bilibili has it in South Asia, and they do have English subs in South Asia. And so you could do that. I don't think anyone's doing that because I've had to went to other methods, which I think other people have had to use other methods to
And agree
watch
with.
this series.
And agree with.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, that's what we've had to do. And so it's crazy that, as we talked about, Crunchyroll basically taking the lion's share. Yes, we do have things like Netflix and Disney Plus and Hulu and all those others. But for series like this, I Have a Crush at Work, which is a rom com and not a bigger series and stuff like that, it kind of gets lost in the cracks, certain series, because it's not going to go to those bigger streamers. It's either High Dive or Crunchyroll, and both of them, for whatever reason, passed on it at the moment, which is very unfortunate because we know they've done other series or genres like this. I mentioned My Tiny Senpai. It was from 2 years ago. It was on Crunchyroll. They dubbed it, but they have tons of isekai. They have tons of other genres. So why not throw this on there for this season and stuff? Because it would be a different, you know what I mean? A different look and stuff like that. And it is in English digitally from Kodansha. So it's interesting that it's not there. Hopefully, it will be able to come to a streaming platform later in the year and stuff like that, maybe Crunchyroll. And the reason why I say that is last year, in spring 2024, Girls Band Cry TV, which was basically an anime original series, didn't have anywhere to stream legally, just like I Have a Crush at Work at the moment. So I'm sure some other people went to other avenues to watch that series. But what happened with Girls Band Cry is later on in the year and stuff like that, it did come to Crunchyroll, but it wasn't till November 6th, 2024. It came to Crunchyroll and was all 13 episodes and stuff like that dropped at once. But that's still 2 seasons after the fact. And you know how we said it's changed now, right? Like everyone is like watching here and now, what's on this season and stuff like that. So for these type of series, like I wonder how Girls Band Cry performed when they just dropped it all after 2 seasons had passed, and what'll happen to something like I Have a Crush at Work if they do drop it all so many seasons after the fact and stuff like that, since everyone's so focused or hyper focused on what's happening this season and stuff like that. Or
Yeah.
those who had an interest like myself go to other methods and have already watched it and say, well, why am I going to watch it again, stuff like that, because I was primed to watch it, but now I have to find other means, so to speak. And I wish High Dive, because they only have so many series I wonder why they couldn't have got it, because they need content. As I explained, they just lost 3 shows from 2 years ago. They need to find content. And even with them having AMC behind them, it feels like they're going backward instead of forwards, doesn't it?
That I was after a whole bit talking about High Dive. Yeah, you thought when we talk, how long has it been since High Dive became part of the AMC? At least 2 years, maybe 3. Has it been that long?
I want to say at most 2 years. I
think it's more than that. My guess is it's more than that, but yeah.
But you could be right.
And this is where we stand with it. And we haven't seen much move. We haven't really heard anything, much movement. AMC has just trotted along. And
they do get
I know where you're going.
2 or 3 or 4 series. Like mostly, I think this season they had 3 series, but it's been hard for them to get the bigger titles, yes. And they have been getting more mature titles. So if you want a mature title that is uncensored, High Dive will deliver and stuff like that. But it'd be nice to see them, like this would be a nice one for them to get, because I Have a Crush at Work is just a nice, it's adult characters. It's set in the workplace. It's basically a rom-com, so to speak. And it's just something slice of life and fun, something different from the isekai and all these other ones. And it'd be nice to mix it up for either Crunchyroll or High Dive, right?
So, and as much as I like the idea myself, and this is a seinen, is that the target? Does that type of demographic matter? Does that type of tone matter to people? At least to the companies, do they think that matters to people? And would it work for them? Would it work for who they're targeting? And I guess those are those variables. But I mean,
and we could say that too, that Kodansha USA deciding that it's digital only and releasing it 7 volumes so far. They'll probably get to the full 15 volumes, but releasing it digital only could say maybe that genre only, like they only do it every so often. But I would have liked to think that if they felt they had some success with Sweat and Soap, that they could use what they learned from that to hopefully market this series and stuff like that. And the anime could have definitely helped it, but the anime not being there now probably doesn't help it.
Wait for
and that's for North America.
Yeah, I know. Wait for Drops of God adaptation. I don't know. Anyway,
but at the moment, I guess if you want to legally watch it, then I guess you go to Bilibili and figure out a way to do a VPN there. But most people are doing probably what I am doing, which is we're going other avenues. And it's been a while since I went to other avenues to find something.
It also says something about the potential of a title when somebody goes to those links, considering our avenues now, right? And the reason for it is not because somebody's being cheap. So I guess it's a fair point. Okay, my watch. I only have 2 things to mention, but and they're kind of mainstream. I finally watched another episode of Dan Dan Dan. Won't go there right now. And I did watch the first couple episodes of Sakamoto Days, which is just looks like a lot of fun. Like it feels so. If you were into John Wick, sure, this might be a good watch for you. With a more comedic, with a more comedic slant, that might be a good watch for you. But Sakamoto Days, I think, might be one of the more noteworthy ones of this course. So. Is it or is it not? I'm not always keeping up in that sense.
Well,
I think it's being pushed.
It's from Shonen Jump and stuff like that. It's under Viz. And remember, it was under Manga Plus. So it was one of those titles where it was almost, I would say, from the start, simultaneous with Japan and English and stuff like that, which definitely means you have that built-in audience. And so that's probably why Netflix is like, let's go. We know this is something
LFG,
you know what I mean? Get people in and stuff like that. And that obviously they have worked with Viz, Shueisha, and Shogakukan and all that stuff before, because remember One Piece and all that other stuff. So it's going to be tougher probably for Crunchyroll to maybe get some of those series from Shueisha and Shogakukan and stuff like that. Yes, they got Spy Family and stuff like that, and they'll have the next season and stuff. But those future series, it'll be interesting to see, can they get some of those more high-end series from Japan that people have started to see already, right?
Because
On like Manga Plus and stuff like that.
Because a more mainstream one with deeper pockets or deeper resources or deeper willingness are becoming more willing, I guess, so to speak, right? I mean, that was the crux of what we talked about a month ago, right? Okay, and one last thing, and this isn't something I plan to talk. We said in the pre-show, James, but I guess it's okay to talk about it in this sense. Remember, how upset I was a few months ago, or a few years ago, more like it, when I started to actually notice that the Full Metal Panic light novels were out there in various forms, or in Ultimate collector sets.
Yep.
And the first volume of that, or the collection one, was out of print or unavailable.
I'm guessing that basically J Novel, since they're now a part of Katakawa and a part of Yen Press, that they've reprinted them. I knew they'd probably reprint those because they've done really well.
Yeah, they're back. So they
as
are.
They said, like that one in Slayers, they've admitted, they said it's done well in print, better than it's done digitally for them through their digital style and stuff like that.
Yeah, so
but that's to be expected, since both of those series, remember, Tokyo Pop had originally released them and stuff back in the day, but they are definitely evergreens for both older and newer fans, hopefully.
And that's where that's well, that's it.
Actually, it's funny you were talking about that, right? And older ones. It made me think of T, and remember their big series and stuff like that. We had Air, we had Canon, we had Clannad. And so another one I've been kind of playing on the Switch, it's not out on the Switch eShop in North America for Canon yet in English from Prototype. But if you want to get it now, so Prototype has done a patch for the Japanese version so that you can play the English, right? And they had done it on Steam too. So I had imported the physical edition like I've been doing for some of the visual novels. So I've been playing Canon, Sad Girls in the Snow, in English. And now that we have that, I think everyone's waiting for Air, hopefully, to get an English patch and maybe one day be available on the Switch and Steam, because we've done Clannad, we've done that, and they've done some other key tells. But it's nice to see those. And those are ones, if you want to talk about Switch, and it's interesting, it would be interesting talking to people, how much do you play portable versus docked, and right? And it's interesting for me is I'll play a lot on the big screen, but when I do my portable, yeah, I'm going to do maybe some older games, 2D games, but the ones I play in portable mode the whole time is basically visual novels. And they've brought out from Prototype quite a few of the key visual novels. We've seen stuff from Type Moon. We've had Fate Stay Night. We've had the first Tsukihime game. We've had Witch on the Holy Night. And those are the type of games that it's kind of nice that, yeah, I don't want to be staring at the big screen, but it's good enough, as I like to say. And even it would be good enough on the Switch 2 to just put it in your portable mode and enjoy it on that and have a good battery life. Because I guess that's the other thing I said is you're probably going to have a better battery life on a Switch 2 compared to the ROG Ally, the Steam Deck, and probably that Lenovo Go 2 and stuff like that. Yeah, certain games probably you'll get some good life on, but not everything, right?
Not everything. That's one way to put it. Anyway.
But it's fun that we can get some of those classics over in English and stuff like that the past 7 years and stuff like that. And I will say that having a region-free system, it does have its benefits and stuff like that.
Doesn't it? And I'll remember to put and for myself, I'll just remember to put my order in before the end of the day. Anyway, Well, we almost got. Well, I said I want to finish up at 90 minutes. You thought we could get to 2 hours. Hey, we're gonna almost do it down the middle. Yeah, amazing how we can stretch this stuff out, right?
Hey, I told you how long they were stretching the Switch 2 news out, right?
Yeah. Well,
so we can say this is an official episode now, Mike.
Yeah, but I don't have all the bells and whistles to go with it. Hopefully, when I talk with the others, it won't be nearly as long. In any event, though, if you want to hear what we've talked about in the past or want to want to link to the Twitch or YouTube streams, especially the Twitch, especially when I make my, especially if I give myself time to make my attempt, my Yakuza 0 attempt in the next couple of days, just go to our LinkedIn tree, or our Linktree. That's job search. Linktree, animeroundtable.com, and don't forget to leave us a review where if you can, wherever you get your podcasts. James, thanks for the afternoon.
Yeah, no problem.
And to everyone listening out there, yeah, I know there's more than one of you. Thanks for the time as well. Have a good evening.
Have a good one, guys.